here we go again on the Omega Level Nerds. Welcome to the Omega Level Nerds channel. I'm Don. With me as always, J100. And listen, we got a topic that I feel needs some defending. So we're going to defend Colin Kaepernick from the recent headlines that I believe are unfair. And this is somewhat of a scary subject for me because I guess I don't share the opinions exactly of some writers that have even been on the show. Rich Duick, Todd Matthey, all have expressed, or both have expressed, them being against Colin Kaepernick and the company that, he is creating and investing in. In particular, we're talking about something that does with creating comics using AI. And I certainly understand where they're coming from. I'll certainly make it clear I am not for copying of work, manipulating of work, copying any human's work for profit using AI, or even putting any image out there made by AI and pretending that it's human. I'm not for any of that, and I'm against that as well. That's not really the case, though. That's the thing here, Jay, is that, that's those charges against Lumi, which is the company we're talking about here that, Colin Kaepernick is involved with. That's not why it exists. It doesn't exist to copy AI work or copy human work and, use AI to manipulate it or create more. That's not what it's for. But that's what the headlines would believe, though. And that's what I think is, really what I want to educate everybody about here today and come to the defense of Colin Kaepernick, that, the intentions are not to copy artist work, to put comic creators out of business. Although I understand that fear because, let's face it, if you were a musician that played live, and then all of a sudden, they start recording voice and being able to play it back, right? Like you're not going to be into that really. Although both forms still exist today, just like people that do live shows and plays or whatnot, right? Like, imagine people that did plays for a living, back before moving pictures or movies, and then that comes along, right? It's just, so there are changes of industry that I see one could fear the change because it means they're no longer the hottest thing out there or the only way to do it. But we also see in that respect, though, that people still go to see Broadway shows as well as they go to see movies. People go to see live music and they listen to the radio.
People go to see classical movies and stuff too.
Yeah.
Movie theaters that show old movies.
So, hey, I'm going to New York Comic Con in a couple of months here, and I'm certainly not trying to gain the vitriol of any comic writers or creators because I stand with you in regards to your work being sacred, wanting human artwork, right, and not something that's created by AI. That's not something that Colin Kaepernick is trying to usher in here. So, with that, Jay, I'll leave it to you because certainly I think you're a little bit more knowledgeable in this respect. But
I'm a little bit more knowledgeable on Colin's football career. To be honest with you, I don't quite know or understand the comic industry enough to be able to say whether or not what he is trying to accomplish is going to be good or bad. How I look at it is, what is he trying to accomplish as far as problems in the market that he's trying to solve. I remember growing up, the first time I really understood what, you know, trying to create a business or be an entrepreneur, the easiest way that it was explained to me is all an entrepreneur is someone who finds a problem in the market and solves it, right? So to me, based off of what he's saying and my personal attempts to not necessarily make a comic book, but on the history of the show, I've made mention many times that I would love to have a animated adult cartoon show. And I ain't about to animate that. I probably won't even write the jokes. I want to voice it, but I want to have some input, creative input, and da 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 da. I wouldn't know where to begin. But if there was an opportunity for me to be able to get a show off the ground using the services that Lumi is saying they're able to provide, including animation, what would I need y'all for? You know what I mean? And then on top of that, for the animators that are out there, right? How much are you charging? And considering that I'm trying to save money to move where I want to move, and if I had this creative idea, how am I going to afford you to animate my show? So what do we do when I'm at this impasse? I just got to sit here and wait for, someone to fall in my lap that cares about my adult cartoon show as much as me? No. That's tough. That's probably why a lot of, stuff that is a lot of content that is being created, and especially the stuff that we find that is new, it's not made by a studio. I mean, we'll use a terrible example, but a good example, Hawk Tuah Girl, right? I don't even like calling her that because
Right.
it's the stupidest viral moment ever, but I can't blame her for that in this case.
Yeah,
But
she was created.
she based off of that random thing, now she's been being given the mainstream avenues. The mainstream avenues are opening up because of her marketability. But maybe my comic isn't marketable. This kind of reminds me of like Gamergate, right? And the before it got well, I mean, it was political the whole time, but before it got really like right wing political weirdo stuff, the basis of this was an indie game that was really weird, got high praises, like it was a good game. I wouldn't say it wasn't a good game, but I'm saying like a AAA game. That's what I meant.
Hmm.
And I don't even think the praises were of a AAA game. I think someone was understood what this independent indie small game that this girl made, understood the point, appreciated the creativity of it, and didn't sit there and trash it, right? Of course, it's not going to be the highest selling PlayStation 5 game with the graphical fidelity of moving pictures from the eyes, you know what I mean? But it was probably a good game for what it was and for what audience it was trying to serve, and that was the whole point of that. And that turned into, oh, all the media is just these girls are just having sex with everybody just to get good remarks for their indie game. Like, it's really weird, right? So if there was a place where those indie games or those indie comics or maybe an adult cartoon can uh, uh, at least begin to start their craft, I'm not going to sit there and knock that, right? Um, but before I ask some questions to kind of get an understanding of what this actually is from a comic book industry standpoint, the big thing that bothers me about this, right? And my preamble, if you will, was the summarization of that is, I understand as someone who's tried to create before, I've tried to write a book, I've tried to make a game, I've tried to make a board game, I've tried to write a children's book, I've uh, tried to have a podcast. I mean, I did have a podcast for like 4 years. That was actually pretty successful for if in today's numbers.
Hmm.
Um, um, but I've had all these barriers that if there was a way for me to host my files of more than 2 GB that didn't cost hundreds of dollars a year, I would have access to 4 years of my podcast. You know how many episodes I had? Over 300 podcast episodes, bonus shows and regular show together, on top of other places that I've been. And I can only show you maybe 5 of the most recent terrible episodes that I had to end my podcast with. So if there was a way to get into that industry, and there's ways now, Spotify and YouTube and all that kind of stuff like that. I got in right before that, and I didn't really understand how to leverage YouTube for a podcast. If I would have had just thought, hey, just record this while you're doing the show, and then they could see you, and that, like, that wasn't the medium back then. You got your podcast from the podcast app on Apple. So if I put this shit on YouTube, ain't nobody gonna watch this. And then that turned into the thing, all of it in the middle of it, all the blue. And guess what I didn't do? I didn't adapt. Now I have absolutely nothing to show for anything that I did for those 4 years. And those were amazing, bro. My show was great.
Right on.
So, and the chemistry we had on it was great. So anyway, that's it. He's figuring out a way to lower barriers to enrich himself. So and then whenever I bring up economics, right, and talk about how terrible capitalism is, and everybody knows how terrible capitalism is, right? But you say that's what you got to do it. So then someone does capitalism, and you're like, that's so terrible, right? So then on top of that, the part that bugs me is how people use what happened to him in the NFL as a way to dig at him for Lumi. And the thing that bothers me about the Lumi thing is the only thing that they're talking about is the AI art part of it. And if you ever hear him talk about it, that's the least amount of thing that he talks about. You have the ability to use the AI services, but he's really trying to do the merchandising and the distributing and the all the other stuff around the business aspect of it that you don't have to handle, that as a creative I did not want to handle. I when I made my podcast, I set it up in a way where I did not have to edit or re-upload into another, because that was the technology back then in 2010. Before, what I had to do was record it on Pro Tools or record it on some app, and then turn that into an MP3, and then turn that into it. Man, that was just ridiculous. I didn't want to edit, so I figured out a way to record it straight to MP3 format and then put it onto, because I wasn't trying to edit. And it wasn't that I can't edit. It's just I don't want to do that shit. And I don't want to pay an editor. So I figured out that was my way to get past barriers.
Yeah.
So if Colin Kaepernick is figuring out a way for creatives to get past barriers, creatives that have maybe tried to work with Marvel, creators that maybe have tried to work with DC, creators that, there's this black creator, when this Lumi thing came up, this was something that I thought of. I think I mentioned this to you before, but the Black Sands comics, where it was it was like African mythology superheroes in like ancient Egypt or whatever, and like there's these kids who are like sons of not necessarily gods, but they have like god-like powers, and it's a very interesting comic. It's a really good comic for as many issues as I was able to get for free, you know what I mean? And I donated to them. And I haven't kept up with it, so I'm pretty sure they got more stuff now. But it's stuff like that. That guy had to create his own and go through this and da 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 da. And granted, he was successful, but how many other people don't even want to be that big, but just want to create and have their stuff out there? But there's barriers somewhere, and all he's doing is just alleviating that. So we'll get to that in a second. But the what I want to do real quick is, from a sports perspective, clear up this guy's name real fast, and then I have questions for you. So I want to take you guys back to before Colin Kaepernick did the protest, and we're going to go back to 2015. Now, the 2015 year for the San Francisco 49ers was already tumultuous because Jim Harbaugh left. They almost won the Super Bowl the year before, and two of their big defensive players that helped them get there because they had the best defense in the NFL. That's how they got to the Super Bowl. They retired, and then they lost a couple of other prime players to free agency. And then during all that, Jim Harbaugh was having issues with the ownership, so he ended up going to Michigan. And then so they had, what was his name? Jim. I don't even remember his damn name. That's how ridiculous this is. Jim. I had it right here. Hold on. Tomsula. It was like Jim Tomsula, who I don't even. He was like a special teams coach or some shit like that. But anyway, so they already were gonna have a bad season. So in 2015, Colin got benched in week 9 because they had drafted Blaine Gabbert, and Blaine Gabbert was a highly touted draft pick. Even though if you look back on his career, he was an absolute complete bust. And it started in San Francisco when they let him start in week 9. He didn't really do that good, but the team was on trash with a special teams coach, interim special team coach as the coach, right? And then on top of that, the reason why they benched him in week 9 wasn't necessarily because of his play, but it was because of his play, is because he had to miss the rest of the season for an injured left shoulder that required surgery. So to begin the 26, so he was laid up from half of the 2015 season up into minicamp. He didn't even really participate in minicamp. All right. So coming into the 2016 season, for all the people that want to say he was a trash quarterback and he was a mediocre quarterback and he was this terrible quarterback who was just being a diva because he wanted to get what he wanted, I'm going to read something off to you, and you tell me if you're going to go to work at your desk job with what I'm about to read off. Kaepernick was coming off 3 surgeries entering 2016, needing operations on his thumb, knee, in addition to the season-ending shoulder procedure. After having lost weight and muscle mass because of the injuries, he competed for the starting quarterback position with Blaine Gabbert. Kelly named Gabbert as the starter to open the season. Kelly, but I thought it was Tomsula. Nope, they got another motherfucking coach to begin the 2016 season, which was Chip Kelly. Now, if anyone knows a little bit, it gets a little bit past casual with football, you know Chip Kelly from when he was a coordinator. I forgot where he was a coordinator that ended up becoming the head coach of
Oregon. I believe. Yeah.
But he became the head coach of Oregon and ran this offense that was taking the college football by storm and made Marcus Mariota. Yeah. That made Marcus Mariota, if you know who Marcus Mariota is currently in the NFL, made him look like a god based off of this offense. So he got put into the NFL with the Philadelphia Eagles in 2000, I believe it was 2011, 2012, and literally destroyed one of the best assembled teams in football. The front office talks about it that way. The former players talk about it that way. Even Chip Kelly has apologized for his behavior while he was the coach of the Philadelphia Eagles. So, but it took him losing the head coach job of the San Francisco 49ers, we'll get to that in a second, and having to be a coordinator in college again, and having time go by, and having all his players talk shit about him in order for him to come to that realization. So do you think that he had that realization that he did anything wrong in Philadelphia when he went from Philadelphia to San Francisco? No. Now, we are in week 3 of the preseason. It took 3 weeks. 2 of those weeks, Colin wasn't suited up for the team, so nobody was really paying attention to the fact that he was sitting during the national anthem. But it took until the 3rd week of the preseason for a reporter to notice that Colin was sitting during the national anthem. All right? So Every time I've ever had a conversation about this at a dive bar that is frequented by majority white people that live in an area where there's not many black people that feel that they can call people the N-word, and because it's their bar, they can do and say whatever they want. And this is where I lived, and this is where I could easily go grab a spirit. So I would frequent these places, but I'm not afraid of that conversation, so that doesn't bother me very much. But I don't know how many times I've had to preface this bar conversation that I've had with these guys that want to bring it up with me because they know that I know sports, or they realize that I know sports, right? That I've had to ask, and I ask any of you who have never seen the 20-minute interview that the local San Francisco sports department, whatever, of the station, right, had with Colin about why he had this protest. He talked about police brutality. He talked about what was going on with the system. He talked about how this has nothing to do with the military and nothing to do with all this other stuff like that. He's talking about cops who are doing bad things and then the system that allows them to get away with the bad things. He wasn't even talking about cops in general. He was just he specifically laid out exactly what this protest was for, exactly who this protest was towards, exactly why he was disrespecting the flag or the anthem in protest, and the things that it would take in order for him to not do the protest anymore, which was pretty common sense. Let me get into a little bit of that quote there from this Wikipedia. And I know it's Wikipedia, but it's just an amalgamation of news articles. And again, you can go look at that video on YouTube if you think I'm wrong, because this quote is exactly what it says. During a post-game interview, Kaepernick explained his position, stating, "I'm not going to stand up to show pride in a flag for a country that oppresses black people and people of color." Now pause. You can disagree with that, but if you, again, context, you have to understand that this is during 2016 when there was Alton Sterling, who was killed by the police, Philando Castile, who was killed by police, Charles Kinsey, who was killed by police, or not killed by police, but hurt, brutalized by police, and Freddie Gray, who the police were acquitted of killing him. How you acquitted of killing somebody? How you deemed not guilty for killing someone who, if you know the Freddie Gray thing, that's terrible. He was in the back of a paddy wagon. They were driving all fucking crazy. He ended up breaking his neck because he wasn't secured right in the back of the paddy wagon when he wasn't even supposed to be arrested for anything in the first place. But those cops got acquitted. So Colin Kaepernick is laid up in 2015 because of his injuries, all this stuff. And I just named 3 people. I used to stream in 2020, and we went back and we looked at it. Police kill on average at least 1,000 to 1,200 people a year. Majority of them black people, if you add it up. We did the numbers on stream. So he's watching this and realizing, and if you know his story from the Netflix story, he has his own racial ambiguity. He was a mixed kid that was adopted by a white family, but he had a racial identity crisis when he was young, because clearly he was black, but he was growing up in a white family. So the things that he had to deal with and learn and see and hear growing up with that, he's now this person who has money, who has time, who has influence, who has a positive reputation and a voice. And he used it to bring up something that is a problem in the United States of America. And if you don't believe it's a problem in the United States of America, then I'm going to have to call you racist, because you have to be in order to believe that. You have to be. I'm not sugarcoating that. You can kiss my black ass on that one. So continuing, I'm not going to stand up to show pride in a flag for a country that oppresses black people and people of color. To me, this is bigger than football, and it would be selfish on my part to look the other way. There are bodies in the street and people getting paid leave and getting away with murder, referencing a series of African-American deaths caused by law enforcement that led to the Black Lives Matter movement, and adding that he would continue to protest until he feels the American flag represents what it's supposed to represent. So again, not to get really political, but there's a political party right now that literally put their plans online, and they aren't gonna uphold any of that stuff that we say is a part of the United States of America. It's not freedom. It's not. It's just not what it is. We can argue about that shit all day, but calling spades spades, if you read that document or you know what that document is about, that's not freedom. And if you think that's freedom, you're fucking racist. Sorry, I'm not going to sugarcoat the shit anymore. Sorry. So saying all that to say, right? On the 4th week of preseason, Colin Kaepernick got with former NFL player and current U.S. military members, former and current U.S. Military members, and former NFL player Nate Boyer got together and said, "Hey, how can I do my protest and make it not look like I'm disrespecting the troops and all this other stuff, because that's not the point of my protest?" And they said to him, "You know what you should do? You should kneel. And that would be more respectful." So what Colin did to acquiesce, to make his protest more palatable to the masses, he kneeled. So when people get upset about Colin Kaepernick, they say his kneeling is disrespectful. But
where did he get that advice
I'm pretty
from again?
sure.
I just want you to repeat. Where did he get that advice from again? I just want you to repeat
He
that.
got that advice. He got that advice from Nate Boyer. So ask Nate Boyer, who is a U.S. military veteran. It says, "Oh, I'm one of those too." Look at that. And former NFL player. So he went to a former colleague and someone who's in the military, and then also talked to current and former military members. And they collectively, as a group, said, "Colin, we understand where you're coming from. This is how I think you should protest to make it more palatable to the masses." And he did that, and yet it still wasn't palatable to the masses. Sort of like they never really cared about what he was trying to say in the first place. They just want him to shut up. So it's almost kind of similar that an industry who, again, we're going to get into it because I have these questions. For what I know about this industry, can't afford to pay its artists, can't afford to pay most of its writers, has distribution issues all the time, has creativity, it stunts their creativity, and limits their creators based off of using only a certain amount of chosen heroes that have been decided are our legacy heroes and the only ones that you can use. And anytime something new comes out, that industry tries to stomp it down. Now, that last part, I don't really know. That last part, I'm just guessing, because it's part of a capitalistic system that in order for it to survive, it's got to beat and stomp its competition at the same time in order to be as profitable as it wants to be, right? So after hopefully clearing Colin's name, because all those points are valid, and if anybody wants to argue with me about that or debate me about that or has a point that you think that needed to be made that you want me to address, I definitely will, because I'm about the sports. But my question to you is, especially knowing comic book shop owners, being around the comic book industry, knowing writers, going to Comic-Con, knowing that there are people that may not agree with what the conversation we're about to have. Can you give me like a breakdown of what you feel the weaknesses in the comic book industry are, and then tying that to what Colin Kaepernick is trying to address and capitalize on?
Okay. Well, to me, the biggest weakness of the comic book industry is the pace of the storytelling. And I guess I would say the overall value of the stories that they bring. Comic books now are $4 to $5 per issue. And the reason I no longer go to a comic book shop and have a weekly pool is because I just noticed, like, I just bought a year's worth of comic books, X-Men comic books, which is equivalent to about $60, and I've got maybe a 2/3 of about 3 stories. It's just, so it's really just not, it's not, the pacing of the stories in comic books is just not good. They don't focus on just telling a story, it seems, anymore. And they're more just trying to continue these brands, these franchises. That's why we have how many X-Men number ones, and how many number one Avengers and reboots and shit like that.
New 52 and
Right, exactly. Rebirth, New 52, just like you said. So, I mean, I could put up with that if I was paying a couple bucks an issue, but at $5 an issue, it better be exciting each and every issue. I better get some sort of segment of the story that makes me want to get the next issue. And we just don't get that with comics anymore. That's more manga. They're beating, and I know I'm going off the rails here a little bit with your question, but they're getting the shit kicked out of them by manga, because manga has consistent stories.
but it's funny you bring up manga because when Lumi came up, the Black Sands comics crew popped into my head, and when listening to Colin break down what he uncovered during his market research and the solutions that he's trying to provide in the market, it made me think of how sick and how fucked up and how uh uh shut in Mangeku end up getting, and how honestly we don't even have complete stories of legendary mangas because the guys died.
Right.
I mean, we got
Those
Akira
series.
Toriyama, he died of old age, but we have a lot of Mangeku who die in their 40s or 30s, 40s, 50s because of what they had to go through for, how the manga industry is. So, um, I get that part on part of the comic book side of it, right? So that kind of clears that up a little bit. That opens up my eyes a little bit on that one, because I didn't even know how much comics were nowadays. I think I remember when I was around, they were like what, like 75 cents a dollar or something like that.
Right.
I don't even really know. Because I didn't really buy them. I just was around the people that did.
Yeah.
But when it comes to the industry as a whole, it's like writers and artists and all the middlemen that go in between all that. How is the industry for them currently?
I mean, it seems to be pretty tough because, let's face it, comic books just don't sell like they used to. And how could they? I mean, I love comic books. I love the art part of it. I love the art and storytelling melding, but look at what we have nowadays. Look what we have access to nowadays. The MCU, the animated universes that we have these days. So, um, I don't think comics holds a monopoly anymore as far as a meld of art and storytelling. I think they have competition and a lot of it. Uh,
I
they're
mean,
they're IP farm at this point. Like
right.
they're not even. It's
So
not even like they're there to make money anymore.
that's the thing. You saying that just makes me think of all the articles, all the comic book writers and the comic book artists are so upset about this. Be upset with your company. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, what are you mad at Colin for giving you the ability to write your stories and draw your pictures and you know what I'm saying? Merchandise
Yeah,
off your stuff, that you don't have to just do it with, the big companies.
I
So I
think
guess
though
when
that
it
there's another component that I should speak about though.
okay,
I want to say the love of the industry, right? It's like look at Rich Dueck, who's on the show, and it's funny because he came on the show. And I don't even remember what question I asked him, but we said, listen, if you want to write Spider Man, X Men, you want the big Marvel DC, you got to create your own shit first and do
yeah.
good at it. And
Yeah.
I swear to God, it was maybe 2 months later, he was on DC's Superman Blue and Red. And then later he was doing, it was Old Man Hawkeye, or no, this Wasteland series where he did the Old Man Hawkeye. So he was doing shit for Marvel. So he laid it out perfectly. As a creator, that's what you have to do. So yeah, this is not something that I see. Like, if it takes over the industry, whose fault is that? Right?
Right.
Like you keep saying with the market, like, there's a problem to solve and it gets solved, then
Just
but
because your company or you didn't come up with the idea or you're not rolling, you didn't switch to YouTube when you were still trying to do, post your podcast on Spotify and or not Spotify, but Stitcher.
yeah.
Yeah. That's Stitcher's out of business. Stitcher don't even have an app anymore. That was my main app. I literally probably was like I was ranked, not high. I was like
Yeah.
but on that app, I was in the 30s before. The highest I got was like 32 or something like that. I was getting the streams. That app don't even exist anymore. I should have adapted to YouTube. I didn't. I lost because I didn't adapt and I got crushed by other people and kids who yell in the microphone while they're playing 2K. But
She's not
that's what
wrong.
it is.
Yeah.
That's what it is. And so currently right now, for people who are trying to make their own stuff, what barriers do they have? Like
Well,
like
geez,
so
look at
so for
look at
go
this
ahead.
podcast. The Omega Level
Mhm.
Nerds logo. You know where that came from?
What's that?
Jelly Rose, who used to be on the show, she designed
That's
it.
right.
And she even did a little
Yeah.
video. Sometimes you'll see a little spinny version of that.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
didn't
Yeah.
do any of that. I just got lucky enough to where she came on the show. She was trying to help. I still be using that. She might even be salty about it. I don't even know. But I still
Right.
be using that shit because I ain't gonna be able to make nothing better.
Exactly.
So so I have a hard time. I won't do it. I won't say, hey, something that people that already have barriers, if it takes those barriers away so they can be creative, so we can understand their world, and then maybe you as an artist can say, hey, this looks really good. How about how about instead of doing AI, maybe, and get something going? Like, you don't have to be like that. You could see, okay, something was created with AI, and then, hey, let's make it better. Um, that's my whole thing. Like, okay, I get it. If Lumi comes out, or any company, and they start copying shit and making stories and fake Avengers and X-Men and blah 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 blah,
Wouldn't that be on those creators then?
I would think so. You would think, right, because you're gonna be able to say, hey, no, that's my shit. Like,
And like
you
that's
could
the
be
thing
able
that
to.
that bugs me. That's the thing that bugs me about the whole AI issue in the first place. So
Yeah.
yes, we want to be upset with the source for so let's stop calling it AI in the first place. And I know that's like name recognition and that's what people are
Yeah.
going to look at it as, but it's just machine learning. Okay? It's not artificial intelligence. It's just a code that reads stuff and then
Right. If it was
regurgitates.
artificial intelligence, it would be
Right,
thinking and
if it was artificial
evolving and.
intelligence, it wouldn't be as ridiculous as it is. It's not artificial intelligence. They're just calling it AI to give it a nice catchy name because it's marketing, right? This is just tech bro marketing. But anyway, so with the machine learning, um you can be upset with how it gathers the information and you can be upset of how it's being regurgitated. But ultimately what can be used and done with it, I understand is an issue for artists and all that other stuff. But the real problem is how industries are symbiotic organisms, right?
Mhm.
You can't have one without the other, right? We can't get down the street without the people who do the construction, and people with the construction can't do nothing without the people who do. You know what I'm saying? That's what I'm talking about.
Can't
Everything's all
make a
kind of
movie
connected
without the person
in
that
that
makes
way,
the film. You
right?
can't run the film without the person that makes the camera. Yeah.
So
That-
so with that being said, the reason why the artists are being treated the way that they're being treated is there's no real way to have their art be bought, sold, marketed where the money is flowing in for it to come in that way. So, not to try to degrade art or to say that art shouldn't be paid for, But until we can figure out a way to have that be compensated, or for the trillions of dollars that get siphoned off for all this ridiculous R&D that goes to this machine learning that y'all don't like, maybe that can go to be sent out through the artist somehow. But that's all dictated by market trends and where people spend their money. So I say that to say that when it comes to these independent creators who are trying to look for ways to get their, just like the other guy, what he was saying, that to make your own, be good at it, then you get to work for the big dogs. Why the fuck would I want to work for the big dogs if I got something that's good? You know what I'm saying? So I look at a The Boys. I look at a Invincible. I look at there's another one I wanted to have queued up. Shit. I forgot what it was called, but anyway, but there's these independent. I think that stuff and those stories are more interesting than the legacy franchise brands that are out here. I don't even want to look at that, but I definitely do want to get into The Boys and see what that looks like. I already have watched a 3-hour breakdown of what the Invincibles is from beginning to end, so I at least have an understanding of the story, even though I didn't read all the panels, even though I want to, but that's different. It's new. It's this, that, it's all this stuff like that. So I'm pretty sure that there are thousands of other people with thousands of other ideas that they can come up with. And when it's all said and done, what this just conjured up in my brain was, during my podcast career, based off of my podcast and what type of show that it was, I would get reached out by local organizations and local groups that did stuff around the community for me to highlight what they were doing on the show, bring them on to talk about, some of the stuff that they were doing around the city. And I also was invited to do speaking arrangements, which was leading me to try to do a professional speaking career. But I didn't really want to do that because I hadn't accomplished any of my dreams or goals yet. I hadn't successfully made my podcast be what I wanted to be. So how can I sit there and tell kids, oh, you can reach your dreams, when I hadn't reached mine yet? I'm just talking shit to get paid at that point. And I didn't feel that was fair. So I never really went that far into it. But one of my favorite talks that I ever gave, right, was at the Cleveland Public Library over in Cleveland Heights, where it was, I forgot how the topic went, but it was like making your own non-fictional characters or something like that, right?
Mm.
And I went there with my favorite Iron Man shirt, and there was this room of these kids with their own comics, because that was the thing, that if you didn't have like your own hero or own character already, like bring that if you had it, but if you didn't, like draw a picture of like a character that you want to make or something like that. And it was this room full of these young, diverse group of kids. It was black, white, Asian, Hispanic, bro. It was fucking amazing. And I got to sit there and talk to them about, it blew their mind when, I had this Iron Man shirt, and I was like, okay, so if you guys are familiar, any of you guys familiar with Iron Man? And they're like, yeah, I'm familiar with Iron Man. I was like, okay, so who's Iron Man's like sidekick? And this one kid was like, War Machine. And I was like, right. So I was like, okay, so you got Iron Man and you got War Machine. Who do you think is my favorite character? And there was this little girl in the front, and I'm saying this story for a specific reason. So this little girl in the front, I seen her. She had these cute little glasses on or whatever, and she wanted to raise her hand, and I saw her, and she didn't raise her hand. And there's one kid in the back was like, War Machine, and she was like, no, like that, right? It was so fucking cute, bro. And I was like, nope. And then she shot her hand up. She was like, Iron Man, silly, duh, he's got the Iron Man shirt on. And I was like, yes, it is Iron Man. And the kids were like, what? But War Machine's the black guy. And I'm like, I understand that. But you have to understand that I grew up in a time period where I didn't have that many diverse amount of characters. So for me to find representation in myself, I had to get to know every single one of these characters and figure out which character best represented me. But you guys are in a time period where me personally, as a guy that likes comics and likes different stories and stuff like that, I want to see something new. So I'm sure that every single one of you in this room right now, right, has a character that they made, and I want to see your characters. But the question I'm asking now is, who came in here with stories of their own? And that little girl had a story of her own. And when we broke up, the mother of my daughter ended up keeping it. So I don't have it on hand to show it or to see remember what it was called, but I do remember that it was this black woman superhero who wore this black leotard, kind of like ballerina outfit, but her power was in her hair. And she had this long silver hair, and her power was in her hair. And she would go around the universe, helping out planets and helping different species and coming back to Earth sometimes to protect Earth. And she would do it all with her magical hair. And bro, man, I'm kind of getting emotional even saying it right now. But the look on this little girl's face while she's sitting there explaining to me her character, and all the kids showed me their work, so it was all beautiful. But I specifically remember this girl because she was the one that was most passionate about it, especially because she was the one that was the most apprehensive while I was giving the talk. But once I showed that I was interested in the work that she had, she lit up like a firecracker, and I hope that she's still drawing and writing and creating to this day. And so when I see something from Lumi and what he's trying to get, creators that have barriers to try to do, is I see that little girl's work turning into something that someone might be able to see someday and aggregate out there and not become a big comic. That's what I think about when I think about Lumi, is those kids in that room that had a character that they drew that wasn't Superman, that wasn't Spider-Man, that wasn't Batman, that was their creation, that had their world building and their character development. And it may not have been great, it may not have been the best, it may have been acolyte level writing, but it didn't matter because it was theirs, and it was something that they were proud of because it was something that represented them or had representations of the world around them. And that's what I think is important. So now that we're getting to a time and an age where we're realizing and seeing the holes of having a DC and a Marvel, because these dudes monopolize everything, and then you fucking complain about everything that they put out anyway. You can't even enjoy it when it comes out. And I know I didn't give Deadpool and Wolverine the best glowing reviews, but I did tell everybody to go see it. And I did say that it was a good movie, but it was a bad Marvel movie for what Marvel had tried to set up, because they're fucking up their own universe. You live long, you either die a hero or live long enough to become the villain, like Robert Downey Jr., right? And I think that's like the trope, the meta joke that they're trying to make with all this.
Right.
But like, bro, it's not meta, bro. Your first 20 years of your fucking shit was to me, one of the most amazing ways to show superhero cinema. Like, you did it. You nailed it. And all you had to do was keep going. And you're fucking it up now. And so no one else can make superhero fucking movies, because when they do, it's like, oh, but it wasn't Endgame. But it wasn't Infinity War. But it wasn't the first Iron Man. But it wasn't Captain America Civil War. But it wasn't. Well, how are we supposed to get original stuff out here if the only blueprint that you're willing to think of or go off of is these big companies and corporations? Fuck these companies and corporations, bro. I don't want to see Iron Man rebooted again, bro. Let the motherfucker die. Let Riri take the shit. I'm sick of Batman. I fucking hate Batman. And part of the reason why I hate Batman is for how many times they've rebooted the dude, and he's still this can't get over his fucking parents dying recluse of a fucking man. I don't want to relate to that. I don't care how much money he got. I don't care how many bitches he can get. This dude is fucking weird.
Yeah, they did it.
And every time you reboot him, it's the same shit.
Same shit. Well, they changed it a little bit, but yeah, they did just a new animated. I had to watch it for Superhero Speak. Bruce Timms, J.J. Abrams, Matt Reeves, and yeah, it's just Batman's got problems with his parents died. Yeah, I'm with you on the Batman. Sorry, it was just a
So
recent thing.
I'm not trying to, and I don't want this to seem like we don't care about the writers and we don't care about the artists and we don't care about this, that, and the third. In fact, what I'm telling you to do is create your own shit because I want to read that.
Yeah.
Create some new shit, man. You're already a writer. You're already an artist. Get together, independently create some shit away from DC and away from Marvel and away from what Dark Horse. I don't fucking know. Does that shit even exist still? Like,
No, pretty much Marvel owns it. You got
you see how old I
IDW,
am with
Boom
this shit.
Studios, yeah, Variant, Image. But
Right.
Marvel and DC's the big two. But no,
That's
and
what I'm
we
saying.
do care. We do care, and I do understand their trepidation about the whole AI machine language learning. I understand the feeling that you're being threatened for being out of business. But to my point, to Jay's point, moreover, is some people just don't have the resources to even sniff getting anywhere near being able to do anything. JD, who is a writer, has been on the show. He's a little bit more open to the AI thing because guess what? He's created projects where he's paid thousands of dollars to get art and stuff done, and it be nothing. So,
So how's
uh,
that supposed to work? Just because you want to feed the artist? Like, so now I can't write my book because I paid you, and it's not even what I want. So now I'm stuck with what I don't want on my book, and now my book don't do good because it don't look. I can't market it the way I wanted to. Like, there's a whole bunch of stuff that goes into it. So it.
I also think the market will determine itself, though. I think that you will
True.
have people, hey, I don't want nothing to do with AI art. I mean, obviously we see, and there's shit like someone entered a Todd McFarlane contest with AI and won it, Like, so I understand that's, if you're going to do that, there should be some sort of disclosure or designation, which I believe there will be. But, I just think it's just going to be a little self-policing.
And
Um,
I also think that especially when it comes to how exactly the machine learning works, I guarantee I will bet the electronic things that I hold dear that 98% of the people complaining about the AI art don't even understand how it works. They just know that they've heard stories of art that
well, they see
was
these
recognizable
headlines.
to be and was stolen and right and with the headlines and things such as that. And so the thing that's so crazy is I remember when AI first became a thing. And realistically, it was in sponsored op-eds in like magazines and newspapers and stuff like that. So a lot of the reason why people believe a lot of the like climate change denial, why that's so prevalent is because they basically had AI. Because if you actually read the articles, some of them didn't even make sense. But they had AI articles that, for the most part, had very catchy headlines, and for the first couple sentences of the article were, fairly well written. But as you go down, there's like typographical errors and syntax
Mm-hmm.
errors and stuff that doesn't make sense. It's just like, what the fuck is this by the time you end up reading it, right? But a lot of people don't do that. They read the headline, they skim, they read the beginning, kind of read the end, and I got the point. And so a lot of people believe the bullshit of climate change denial because the oil and gas industry were basically sending out AI op-eds to newspapers and magazines, and that worked. So other industries wanted to see what else they could do with it. And then so that became the chat GPT type tool of, I want to, have an essay about 19th century Victorian art,
Mm-hmm.
and it'll regurgitate some fucking bullshit. But if you don't edit it, it's not going to make any sense. And people started taking that and running with it, and then using it with art and all this other stuff. So I understand where the issue may come into play, but just like you were saying for your logo, what do you think I did for my logo, man? Shit. You know what I mean? Like I got lucky. So for my Pennyman Doctrine podcast logo, there was a good friend from high school, which was a very riveting 2-part episode that we had. Because he was a kid who wasn't gay, but was effeminate because he was raised by his mom and he like really looked up to his mom and all her friends.
Mm-hmm.
So he like wanted to be like them, but he wasn't gay. But because he got bullied so much, he became gay, tried that lifestyle for a long time, or for like 5 years or something like that, and then was just like, bro, I'm literally destroying my mental health doing this thing because I got bullied when I was in high school. So he's like, an advocate for the community and all that stuff like that, but like he's just not gay.
Right.
And I was a friend of him when I was in school. And I, did what I could to kind of defend him from any bullying that I saw. So he appreciated that. And then we linked up one day, come to find out he's a graphic artist. And that's how I got my parental advisory Pennyman Doctrine logo with the splash and all other stuff like that. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I got lucky. I was going to do just have Pennyman Doctrine in words. There's the logo.
Yeah.
It'd have been terrible. Like, no, so if there's a way, and I've been doing it with the sports podcast that I was going to come out with, we were AI arting the fuck out of that. And I found some shit that I was just going to pay for. And when it was all said and done, I was going to end up paying like $162 for this like simple shape design. You know what I mean? That like spelled out letters that we needed. No. I'm not paying $162 for that. I would pay my friend $162, I guess, if that's what he charged, but I ain't paying $162 for some weirdo fucking website for some art shit. No, give me that shit for free if I can do it. And so that's what I'm saying. So I don't want to like destroy artists, but I ain't paying for that shit because I can't. And if I could, I would, but I can't. So unless we figure out a way to have money flow free enough for us to be able to appreciate these type of things, I'm not gonna hate on, because you, as an artist, you have an ability to work with Lumi and do all the other stuff. So if Lumi's able to help you and you draw, what's the issue?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
if Lumi's able to help you and but you draw, but you can't write, and you get writing help. So now your art's got good writing because you got writing help. Now your art's popping. Are you mad? No. You write, but you can't draw or shit. That's me. I can write, not maybe like book write, but I can like essay write. Yeah. I can't draw worth shit. I'll give you a stick figure. What you want? line, circle. Bam. Gotcha. You know what I'm saying? So yeah. I don't know.
I do know.
It doesn't seem like a big issue to me, but I see people's apprehension. I just wish they would look into it a little bit more. And if you're going to talk shit about, an NFL player's career, let me fuck your thumb, knee, and shoulder up and have you try out for the San Francisco 49ers. See how far you make it. You won't.
That's a good point. Good point. And
then realistically, the 40. So when Chip Kelly went to the 49ers, Kyle Shanahan, who's now the head coach, was the offensive coordinator. Part of the reason why they released Colin wasn't even because of the protests. It was because they were looking for Brock Purdy. They wanted to spend their money on the running back, wide receivers, tight end, and the defense, and get their quarterback Mr. Irrelevant and not have to pay him. They didn't have to pay Brock Purdy barely $1 million for 4 fucking years, and they went to the Super Bowl twice. That's what they were looking for. So it wasn't so much that they were looking for a diva. They weren't looking for a banged up dude that they're going to have to end up paying because he got them to the Super Bowl. His money time was coming up. They got this new offense. We want to spend money here, so let's get rid of this big asset. And because he did the protest, all the rest of the other teams didn't want to pick him up. It wasn't because he was bad. It's because they were fucking racist. I'm not gonna sugarcoat that shit. So don't fall into that. And if there's something to critique or expose with Lumi when it happens, let's do it. If Colin and the company fucks up, let's hold them accountable.
Yep, absolutely.
But they're just venture capitalisming still. They're still in the funding stage. This shit ain't even live yet. And for what it's trying to accomplish, I don't really see a problem. I'm looking forward to Lumi created work. I want to see what people have to put out. I want to see what these writers with these writer chops, everybody say, writing's bad for everything. All right, then fucking show me good writing then. Stop talking about it, be about it.
There you go. That's it. Yeah, and before we go here, I just want to say that I do not, again, support anyone's work being stolen or replicated or misrepresented as human. So I understand where the comic writers and comic artists come from. And I'm not here to say that, you shouldn't feel the way you feel about AI, whatever, machine learning, replicating of one's artistry, whether it be through writing or an image. But what I am against is framing this as though Colin Kaepernick is specifically buying into using AI to steal and to, do something nefarious, because it's not. And just like Jay said, if that happens, absolutely, let's hold him accountable. Let's talk about it. But, until I see a Lumi comic book series in the comic book shop or on Amazon, I mean, we'll start there. But, again, to say, and I get it's Colin Kaepernick, it's a buzzword because of everything that Jay labeled on the show today. But again, to just accuse him of wanting to take comic creators' jobs, and it's unfair. I understand how you feel. I support you in not wanting to have your work ripped off or not wanting to lose work. But for those of you that are protesting what he's doing, just understand the correct context, which is, again, ripping you off for taking your work away, or any artist work away, is not the intention of Colin Kaepernick or Lumi.
Like I always say, to be able to get my point of view out when misunderstandings and miscommunications occur. I want you to be upset, but I want you to be upset for the right reasons. And what I mean by that is not emotionally manipulating those reasons, but people do things based off of the information that's presented to them, right? And again, it's really weird to me how people can sit there and nitpick, this scene in the Acolyte had a tree that looked plastic, so the whole set design's trash, and like all this other stuff like that. But you can't take 2 seconds to find out who Colin Kaepernick is and what happened to him, but then dog what he's doing because you see AI art, which again is not even something that he highlights. It's a feature that is with the service, but it's not something that he's even highlighting. What he highlights again is the merchandising, the ability to figure out business solutions with distributing and maybe editing, maybe even payroll and all this other stuff that I heard him mentioning on another program. And I think those things are important because I was watching a Mr. Beast, I wouldn't say expose, but just kind of explaining the kind of hot water that he's in right now. Yeah, so you may have the ability to attract millions of people, to a video, which if you put advertising on it at the end of the month, based off of how many hits it gets, you get lots of money. But just because you accumulate all that money and you create a LLC based off of that doesn't mean that you actually know how to run a business. Doesn't mean that you should actually run a business. So again, if you are a creative who is the creative, but in order to do the creative thing that you want to do, you got to turn it into a business. I probably would want, if I was that person and had that weakness, I probably would want someone to help me or have someone on my team that could do it, or have a service provided to me that I could buy into or subscribe to or whatever that helps me take care of that shit until I get big enough to do it how I need to do it or whatever, or learn how to do it myself or whatever. Or you can turn into Mr. Beast and be a child who has millions of dollars for no fucking reason and mistreat his employees because he doesn't know what employees are because he's never been one, never never been one, never really had to see how that world was like. But now he's, running $1 million company with people's
Yeah.
livelihoods in his control.
Yeah.
So
You just see him in his. Hey, where's the I-9s at? Give me the employee I-9s. Let's take a look. Yeah, he doesn't know shit
yeah,
about
right.
that.
No, he ain't doing that. He's how can we get little kids to watch my shitty ass videos today? And that's it. And so were harmed, and there was harassment and all the things that you would think would happen if a 19-year-old with no life experience or business experience had millions of dollars and ran a company. So, with all that said, um, it's just one of those things where it's just like a lot of people get mad at me because I have the ability to speak a lot about what I know, but you never actually really see me talk about what I don't know. And if I don't know, I'll ask, like I did for a portion of the show to figure out how this industry worked, to now put that together with the stuff that Colin Kaepernick was talking about and seeing, you know what? This might be a route the industry might go. Instead of Marvel being the comic dictator, Marvel might have to be the comic book service.
Yep.
Marvel might have to buy Lumi and copy the business model.
Oh, keep the
Then
same energy.
Colin
Keep the
Kaepernick's
same
gonna be a
energy.
billionaire.
Yeah.
Then he's gonna be a billionaire and do another project. And then now Marvel is doing what Lumi doing because what Lumi doing was working. That's the whole point of being an entrepreneur. So it's just really weird that creatives that based off of what your talent is in and of itself is entrepreneurial, for you to poo-poo this because you think your art's going to get stolen when he's trying to eliminate barriers for your art to get paid for is a little weird. And I know that sometimes the nerdy stuff and the sports don't mix, even though sports is really nerdy. Outside of
I
like
don't know, man. I was gonna
the
talk to
big
you.
buff men.
I think we might lean into, because there's one sport I'm pretty nerdy about. It's NFL. I'm not all into
Yeah,
sports like that, but
yeah.
I consider myself pretty knowledgeable in the game there.
Like I know the happenings around football, but like I don't get the strategy of football. I mean, I get the strategy of football, but like the internal meta strategy, that how you actually become a champion strategy, that
Well,
level of
you know
I
what?
want to know that.
See, and that's funny. We're going off a tangent here, but that's funny because to me, football and how you win is very simple. People just don't know how exactly how to do it, because if you have the ultimate team, you will win straight
Right.
up. But, we like to focus on the individual players or the coach or the strategy. Like if I'm coaching or owning a football team, all my money's going into the offensive defensive line. I'm going to have about 3-4 running backs, and
Right.
I'm just going to design my offense will go 3 yards a play. It will take
Right.
an hour to get 7 points, but you will
Right.
be tired and demoralized as a team.
Right.
And there's just
Going
so
into
anyway,
halftime, 7-0.
you
You've had the
know,
time of possession, 15 minutes.
oh look, you got 8-9 in the box. Okay, here comes a pass play touchdown. Like that's how. But
Yeah. I
Anywho,
got you. That's how I am with basketball. I can watch basketball that way.
um,
Baseball, I get, but like, there's baseball so individual.
yeah,
Realistically, it's a team sport, but it's very individual. That it's hard to strategy because I never wanted to be a pitcher, so I don't know what the pitcher strategy is. Every time I watch catchers, that shit hurts my knees. So
yeah,
they're the quarterback basically of the baseball field. So I don't fucking I know baseball, but I don't know baseball because I don't look at it from a catcher's point of view. But
yeah.
anyway, I say all that.
It's a
I
lot
say
of
all that to
people.
say that um I know that the sports and the nerdy don't mix, but um yeah, there's numbers with sports. So you can sit there and say Colin is a mediocre quarterback, but if you had a bad shoulder, you wouldn't have a good quarterback rating either. But when he didn't have a bad shoulder, that motherfucker was one of the baddest motherfuckers in the NFL at the time. So the fact that he wasn't able to get on the team and Blaine Gabbert was able to, and a few other quarterbacks that we look back on, are like, how the fuck did that happen? Even to this day, there's like, look at the Denver Broncos. I'm pretty sure the Denver Broncos could use a washed up Colin Kaepernick and be better than the situation that they have right now. Jared Stidham and Bo Nix and Zach Wilson is your quarterback room. And don't get me wrong, that sounds like a decent quarterback room if you're playing NCAA 25. But on paper, it's not. Two rookies and a bust is not a good remedy. But you know that's my whole thing. Everybody's able to have their opinion, but your opinion's got to be based off the facts, especially when they're presented to you in a very easily and accessible manner. Like, was Colin Kaepernick a bad quarterback? Why was Colin Kaepernick struggling? Oh, he had 3 surgeries to begin the fucking season, and then had to come in week 2, 3 anyway because the quarterback that they replaced him with twice was worse than him. If Collins is bad, then Blaine Gabbert is probably one of the worst then, right?
Oh,
Those are the facts on the ground. So it shouldn't let that bother you from creative freedom. And ultimately, you don't need Lumi to do these things. Lumi seemingly is going to try to help lower the barriers, but I want artists and writers to take this as a challenge instead of looking at it as a threat. Look at it as friendly competition. Okay, you're worried about AI art? Well, make the best fucking art I've ever seen in my goddamn life. You worried about AI stealing your work? Well, make some work that's undeniably classic that even if somebody stole it, we wouldn't fucking care because that's a blueprint for some shit that should be stolen. You know what I mean? Like the hero's journey, the idea of the hero's journey, that whole trope, that whole circle of storytelling is a story that people steal every time because it's the same story, just different setting and place and same story. Same story. So I don't know. Uh don't hate so much. Create. Don't
that's
hate,
a
create.
that's a great motto. Don't hate, create. And listen, I know a lot of artists out there consider themselves, whatever, woke, leftist, liberal, whatever you want to. And if that's true, then how about you go find some people, some disadvantaged people, and say, hey, can I help you with some art?
Right.
You can do that. You can do that. Anyway,
Omega
yeah.
level Omega level nerds might need some. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. Help us on out.
You know, I know
Uh,
another good example of this is the stream template market. Because when I first started streaming, you had to create your own,
yeah,
and then people made templates, and then Streamlabs was like, "Nope, it's going to be right here in the app."
yeah.
And so all those template people kind of got killed because it got mainstream. So be mad at Streamlabs then. That's where I got my shit. Yeah, I remember how
uh,
hard it was for me to try to make that shit by myself. Then I found an artist and I realized how hard it was for her to make it. So shit, if I'm ever gonna stream again, I'm gonna be on Stream Labs. I'm gonna say that one right there. Yep, I like that one.
Right on. Right on. I mean, they've been doing this shit for years, man, with the website templates and shit. Make your own
Oh yeah,
website. Like, so I get it. Listen, again, Rich, Todd, Matthew, anybody else within the sound of my voice that's like, Don, fuck you for supporting AI. Like, I'm not
no, I don't
supporting
support the AI.
the AI. I support someone that needs
Yeah,
help and can maybe get their shit out there. Um, because again, would you tell some kid, "Oh, that story's cool, but no, you can't pay me $200, so I don't want that story to see light of day." I don't think you would.
I mean that's what people do now.
Oh yeah, but right. I mean, are we really trying to do
That's
that?
what Colin was like. Oh, well, that's fucked up. How about we make a thing that doesn't do that? And people are like, but there's AI in it. I mean, there's AI in everything.
There is.
Anytime you go on Google now, it don't matter. You're using AI, even if you didn't ask to use it. They're gonna give you an AI response anyway.
That's why we
So
talk about, hey, we really need a second car, honey, and all of a sudden we go on my smartphone. Hey, why is
right.
there an ad for a local dealership here?
Machine learned.
So
It's not
I
that it was
didn't
smart. It had a microphone and heard you and was like, "Oh, car."
I didn't even say, hey Siri. It's just it's always
Right.
listening.
Yeah.
All
I
right.
remember the first time I noticed that. I was literally
Yeah.
talking shit about Kim Kardashian, and then for a week it was just like Kim, Kim, Kim. I'm like, get this shit off my phone. Oh man.
All right. Well, yeah. See y'all at New York Comic Con, everyone. Don't hate. Educate
Don't hate,
yourself.
create.
Hey, don't hate, create. But we're gonna be here in defense of stuff. It's kind of a new trend, man. A lot of stuff's getting a bad rap, and we're just gonna be here fighting that. We're gonna be fighting a good fight, coming with truth. Because I don't think there's really any nerdy shit coming out for a little while, so
Mm,
we'll be on the vanguard, I guess. But
no, I guess we're back to games for a little while then, huh?
yeah, you know what? I need to yeah. Yeah, we gotta do some. We haven't done some video game shit in a while, so and I
I
gotta
gotta do
finish
some
Final
games.
Fantasy VII Rebirth and at least talk about
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
So yeah, stay tuned, guys. So until next time on the Mega Level Nerds, Don here. Please like and subscribe if you've enjoyed the video. We do appreciate you watching and making it this far. We do need a lot of help to get past the hate algorithm, so please get the word out there, share, and hope you enjoy the Omega Level Nerds.